Good evening. Thanks for joining us for our Sunday night Old Testament studies. We knocked off in the middle of Genesis 26 last week. We're down to verse 17. We'll finish the chapter here this evening, 17 through 34. It's in the life of Isaac. Verse 17, let's get started here. Isaac departed thence, and he pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar, and dwelt there. And Isaac digged again the wells of water, which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father. And there's been a lot of old revival sermons preached on these verses over the years, but we need to dig again the wells that our forefathers dug. Get back in the Word and get back into the Christianity that the church has handed down to us over the centuries. Don't get too far from the basics. So he went back home again, began to dig them wells out again, because them Philistines had stopped them up. See, that's what the devil does. He tries to stop your well up. He's your opposition, which is the days Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. And he called their names, the wells, after the names by which his father had called them. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley, and they found there a well of springing water. Now, you know, in the New Testament, Jesus said, if you believe in him, that'll change your life. And he put it this way. He said, it'll be like a well of water springing up out of you. You'll be refreshing to those that you're around, and you'll affect other people. He found there a well of springing water. And the herdsmen of Gerar, they did strive with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, the water's ours. And he called the name of the well Esau, because they strove with him. The name has to do with striving. And they digged another. Well, let's say this again. So Isaac's going back, and he's digging the wells again that his daddy had dug. And he's going back home and digging the wells. And it's like, okay, here's the New Testament applications. Anytime that you're trying to do anything for the Lord, don't be surprised that there's going to be opposition come along. Because guess what? There's two sides, and we're in a battle. So he's trying to dig the wells again, and the Philistines are stopping them up on him. So verse 21, they digged another well and strove for that also. He called the name of it Sitnah, I think it has to do with strife. And removed from thence and digged another well. And for that one they strove not, and he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, for now the Lord's made room for us. Rehoboth has something to do with making room for us. And we'll be fruitful in the land. So here's one of the characteristics of Isaac that's a good one. That it'd been easy when he dug the wells again and they stopped them back up. He just give up. Just quit. It's too tough. But he kept digging, kept working, kept going on, didn't he? And finally the Lord blessed him. He found a place of peace. And the Lord appeared unto him the same night. See, what if he'd give up? You reckon the Lord would still appear to him that night? But he kept working, kept going forward. That dogged determination. And the Lord appeared unto him the same night and said, I'm the God of Abraham, your father. Fear not, for I am with thee. And I'll bless thee, and I'll multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. Now remember, Jesus, when he gave us the marching orders of the church, the Great Commission, he said, go to all the world and spread the gospel. And he said, but I'll be with you. Even to the end of the world. And I've said sometimes you may feel like it's the end of your world, but remember the Lord promised that he'd be with you even to the end of the world. He said, I'll bless you and I'll multiply your seed. Give you those descendants that he promised to Abraham. And he said he's doing it for his daddy's sake, for my servant Abraham's sake, because that's the one that God made the deal with, the covenant, right? He told him that he was going to do this, give him all these descendants. And he's going to bless the whole world through him. And remember why he made that deal to Abraham? Because Abraham was called the friend of God. And the reason Abraham was called the friend of God is simply said because Abraham believed God. And it was counted to him for righteousness. Now that's that principle again that goes through the whole Bible. We just believe God. We trust in what he says, his word. And he credits us as being righteous, because that's a righteousness which comes by faith based on God's good grace, giving us what we don't deserve there. So he builded for your servant Abraham's sake, and he builded an altar there and pitched his tent there. where God met with him, he decided, said, I'm going to build here a place of worship, an altar. And he says, I'm going to live here. I'm going to pitch my tent right here. And he called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants digged a well. Verse 26. Then Abimelech, remember that old leader of the Philistines down there? He shows back up. Abimelech went to him from Gerar, where, remember, he had thrown him out. So Abimelech goes to him from Gerar, and Ahuzah, one of his friends, and Phicol, the chief captain of his army. And Isaac said to them, Wherefore come ye to me, seeing you hate me? You've sent me away from you. And they said, We saw certainly that the Lord was with you. Now, there's something that we can question ourselves. Can even your enemies see the Lord in you? And then we said, these Philistines talking to him, says, Let there now be an oath between us, even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee, that thou do us no hurt, as we haven't touched thee, and as we've done unto thee nothing but good, and we sent you away in peace. Thou art now the blessed of the Lord. We recognize you as that your God, God's anointed you to be his man here. And he, Isaac, made them a feast, and they did eat and drink. They came in peace, so he said, yeah, come on over here and eat with you. And they came and ate, and you said, well, what's that old God's man there? What's he doing eating them old pagans like that? Remember, he's a type of Christ here. Ain't that what they accused Jesus of? This man eateth with sinners. Once again, you don't have to think and act like you don't even have to condone other people's lifestyle, but you can still treat them with respect and as a human being and still love them. Okay? Jesus said even to love your enemies here. And he made them a feast, and they did eat and drink. And they rose up betimes in the morning. They sware to one another. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. And it came to pass that same day that Isaac's servants came, and they told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, We found water. And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day, when this was written by Moses many years later. And Esau, you didn't forget about the brother Esau, did you, in the past year? Esau's going to show back up. Just a little snippet, though, because remember, we're always in the Bible following the line of the Messiah down through here, and Esau had rejected his birthright. So here we're going to see just a little sidebar about Esau. You may be wondering, what happened to him? Now, contrast this with Abraham didn't want Isaac to marry none of them heathen girls up there in that land with them Hittites where they was living with. Remember, he sent that servant Eliezer down there to find him a wife, and he found Rebekah. Worked out good for Isaac, but Esau was 40 years old when he took a wife, Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite. So he married one of the Hittite girls. His daddy didn't want his boy marrying them Hittites. And then he married another one, Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, which both at the same time, still harem days back here, which were of a grief of mind unto Isaac and Rebekah. So just remember that. Said, he married them pagan girls, and Abraham didn't want him to do that, and or Isaac didn't want him to do that. So here's they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. Well, just put it this way: if you marry one of the devil's childs, and this works either way, whether you're a man or a woman, if you marry one of the children of the devil, you can bet on it, you're going to have trouble with your father-in-law all your days of your life. See you next week.